Hello, friends.
Hi.
It's Caitlin and Jenica from Get Checkered. Get Checkered is part of the Alberta Podcast Network, locally grown and community supported. How are you?
Oh, good. How are you, Shanika?
I'm okay. Honestly, in Calgary right now, we are dealing with such a massive heat wave. Climate change is real. It's like a full week of, I think, almost plus 30 weather, which is
Okay. Same with Vancouver. It's insane.
It's not enjoyable, team. It's really not. Yeah, and it's going to stay in the high 20s until at least Tuesday of not the coming week, the following week. So
okay.
It's not great. But other than that, no, it's just been trucking along. I went to the office for the first time in like 4 weeks.
Solid.
Yeah. Okay. Preface things, folks. I went to Vancouver to see Caitlin. I then got so sick, like wiped out completely. And I was just like, I need to stay home because I don't want to get sicker, because it was right around the time of Stampede before we went to Montreal, because Montreal I knew was going to be crazy. And then, so then went to Montreal the following week. And then the week after that, my lovely partner took me to BC. So I was there for a week, and then I came back and I just like worked from home for a couple of days because I was like still not feeling amazing. And even when I went into the office, like one of the VPs was like, "You still sound sick." I'm like, "Yeah, I don't know what's going on." Like, I'm fairly okay, folks. I took multiple COVID tests. I did not test positive, but I swear to God, I probably did have COVID. Like, how are you sick for that long?
I think it's a different thing that's going around. I don't think it's monkeypox, but I think it's like we're all actually like really going out this summer and like lots of exposure. I think we're getting back into like, it might be a common cold, but it's like a doozy of a freaking common cold. Because I've been testing too. Nothing from me. So, I don't know. I had a runny nose for a long time. I'm like, did I develop allergies or something? But ridiculous.
Story of my life. I did get diagnosed with a sinus infection somewhere in all of the last few weeks, took all my meds, then started feeling amazing, and then came down with something else. And I've been like over the counter taking Advil cold and sinus, drinking Benylin, just trying to get this thing to go away. Not that I recommend anything that I'm doing, but anyways, long story short, I'm going to be heading into this week, going into the office, even though it's a short week for me because we have Monday off and I have Friday off. So just a solid old 3-day week.
The best.
And yeah, I'm excited because there's like a few events too. So I'm excited to see my coworkers and like see people, I guess, because the last month I haven't really seen anyone.
Nice. Mm-hmm. Oh, that sounds fun. Okay. And Shanika right now is actually house sitting too for my friend Shannon. So I know that she probably has AC in the place, I'm hoping, right?
Yes. Yeah. The place, it has like, that was actually the first, because I'm taking over for someone else that was house sitting, and I texted that girl and I was like, "Hey, the place has AC, right?" Because it is hot. It is really, really, really hot. But no, that house is like wonderful. I get to hang out with 2 dogs. I would say they're like medium sized. The only reason I'm saying medium sized is, Caitlin, have you seen Michaela's dog? Michaela's dog is huge. Okay.
No, I haven't. I know my roommate has a big dog. Those are considered XL dogs, though. Okay, Zelda, one of the dogs Shanika's looking at them. Zelda's a big dog. Zelda is large.
Yeah,
Link
Zelda
is medium size.
Okay, a large and medium dog. Yes. And they are so adorable, but definitely like very needy, which is interesting because I really realized like I love my alone time from everybody, including animals. So it's been interesting to navigate. Also, because they are bigger dogs, my experience obviously is Milo, my old roommate's dog. So, picking up his shit wasn't a big deal because it was like super tiny. These dogs go human-sized poops, and it's like
more than human size.
It's jarring. Okay.
Yeah, but anyways, it's a big handful.
And I'm taking them to Fish Creek Park tomorrow, though. I'm gonna go on a walk there. Yeah, it's like nice. It's forcing me to get out and exercise a little bit more. Oh, Caitlin, I found a bike.
Oh,
I've been biking. Yeah.
Oh,
So in Wassa, Adam kind of was like, you need to get back on a bike. So his family, people, is this a white person thing? Slide into our DMs, let us know. They have so many bikes at the cabin. They have like 7 there. At the house here, they have like 6. Like they have so many bikes. So,
I
anyways,
think that's like a rich family who have biked their whole life kind of thing. It's not a every white family kind of thing, I
Jesus
swear.
Christ. So yeah, started on a cruiser, then graduated to a mountain bike, and then I came home and my dad's been on the cleaning spree, and he's like, "Your uncle gave me this bike. Like, I think it's fine." Adam took a look at it, and yeah, he's like, "Wait, this is like a pretty sick bike. It's a downhill bike though, so definitely like more for nose hill or whatever." But I was like, whatever. But he's like, you could flip this for like a couple $100. Like it's in really good condition. So now I've been biking on top of it
Yeah,
all.
Shani.
I know, new
That's
hobby.
exciting.
Look at that.
Get Strava, and then you can add me, and then start doing your bikes on there. I want to see where you go.
Okay, I'll do that right now.
Yeah, get
Anyways,
Strava's fun.
how was your night? Miss like coming home at 4. Jesus
I know.
Christ.
So traditions.
Tradition.
Saturday night, I had a lot of fun. Yeah, so it's Pride weekend here in Vancouver. The parade's today. Definitely not making it, but it is what it is. So what did we do last night? They had Global Works fireworks too. I missed them this week for the Canada and Japan shows, but I was able to watch the Spain show from the Kitsilano beach because they're like everyone goes to English Bay Beach, but it's so busy and like trying to get there is a nightmare. So I was like, okay, Kits is perfect. So I did that, and then they finished, and I walked across the bridge to Davie Street, which is like Pride Central, and I was gonna meet Brittany and Avery there. They're at this bar called The Junction. It's that one I went to before with the drag show. Like it's a lot of fun there.
Yeah.
But the lineup was an hour and a half.
Oh my God.
So I'm waiting in line. I'm completely sobering up. I'm like, okay. And like pretty much when I'm at the front of the line, they're like, okay, we have to go now because we had tickets to a 1 a.m. start for this warehouse party. And I was like, oh, okay, that's fine. That was okay. I talked to a lot of people. It was fun. I mean,
did you have a good time?
I saw a walk going down on Davie Street. It was interesting. It was fun to be out. So yeah, we end up going to this warehouse party. Starts at 1. It's a 90s theme. So Shanika, I went full Baby Spice last night.
Oh, fun! That's so cute.
It was fun, but I'm wearing like I made it Pride, my version, like with lots of glitter eyeshadow, so much glitter, lots of sparkles, lots of body shimmer, and I'm standing at the bus stop at like 7:30 or 8, trying to get to Kits Beach, looking like this, and everyone around me is like watching me. They're like, what is this? It's fine. Just let me be. But it was a lot of fun. No one else really dressed up in the 90s is what I noticed when I got to this warehouse party. I was in theme. No one else was. That's fine. But it was a lot of fun. They were playing a lot of good songs, but it was so hot in there. Like they had fans going, but it was hot. It was sticky in there. And it was like a warehouse in East Van, and kind of sketchy. When I got out, I was like, where do we go? I've never done this before. And like none of the Ubers were willing to pick people up in that area, which was like another what?
Yeah.
So we had to walk a good distance. YOLO. I get home at 4, and the race here starts at 6 a.m. And I set my alarm. I'm like, this is ambitious.
Yeah, I was like, there's no way. Because as soon as we were like, oh yeah, this is on the long weekend, I'm like, I'm gonna take it easy because your girl's been having a wild few weeks. And I was like, she's not gonna take it easy. So we will have an evening recording time.
Whoops. So yeah. Completely overslept that, not by a little margin. I slept until like 11.
Yeah, which you needed to do. That's 7 hours of sleep. This is how you don't get sick.
I do think my body appreciates me for that choice.
Yeah, exactly.
Because the days where we do force ourselves to get up for the races after not prepping the night before. Yeah, body's not happy after those. So you know what?
No,
it's fine.
And especially with
Shanika
whatever's going around.
very graciously accepted my tardiness. So here we are.
Yeah, I was like, I'm not doing anything. Literally walking the dogs. I was like, I have to go back to my parents' house to do laundry. Like, don't even worry about it. It doesn't matter to me.
It was perfect. Yeah. So that was last night. But this week's been wild too, because we've really had like not any assignments due. We had one, but we did it a while ago. So I've been on the beach like every single day, Shanika. I've been a
That's
beacher.
so
It's been
nice.
amazing. Yeah, I've been happy. I like this side of Vancouver.
Yeah, the sun and the beach.
I know. All the bugs though, my legs they're tan, but they're bug bites.
That's okay. Yeah, the mosquitoes are definitely out. So in Calgary with the weather, we've been getting like 31 degrees, and the next day there'll be thunderstorms for a little bit, which is fine because it like, the earth needs it. But then the mosquitoes are out in full force. And when I was in Wassa, holy crap, the mosquitoes were so big. And I was like, oh my gosh. By the time we left, it was like gonna be 36. So I was like, I think that'll kill them all off. But
36 degrees.
yeah, in Wassa, it's bad. Like, remember, people climate change. I'm like, oh, it's real.
Yeah, that's wild.
But yeah, my legs, I walked the dogs this morning and I got eaten alive. Whatever. I hate it.
This is our life. Yeah.
Gotta enjoy the weather because it doesn't happen like this very often.
No, I know. It's true. Make the most of it.
Exactly. So some F1 updates.
Yeah, the big news.
Freaking Sebastian Vettel came to Instagram and we were all excited, but then he announced that he was retiring.
Yeah, the first thing, the only thing he posts is his retirement video.
I was upset.
I was surprised.
Yeah.
I'm not surprised he's retiring at the end of the season. I think I was surprised by the timing of letting people know, maybe, but
oh my gosh, I was upset mostly because I ended up on TikTok and now my personal TikTok is starting to turn into F1 TikTok.
Yeah. Nice.
And there's all these like sad videos of Sebastian. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm like tearing up over this shit because he has done so much for the sport, from being this like spry young person to break all these records when he was like in his early 20s and teens even, to then finding his voice and fighting for what he believes in. And also, I think Lewis said standing by Lewis and like taking a knee when Lewis was taking a knee. Like, he has done so much for the sport. And I think he's going to be a voice that we all miss. But I totally get it because he talked a lot in the video about his family and just, what this has meant for him, of course, but also that he's ready to just like spend time with his family.
And I think like that's the way to do life, honestly. Like he said, he did his passion and it took a lot of his time for so long. And now he knows what he wants to do and is spend time with his family and do that. Definitely. I think I definitely, for my beliefs, my values is like spending a lot of time with friends and family.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's very important. And evidently he thinks the same thing. But yeah, it'll be sad. There'll be a hole. Who's going to fill it? Both in regards to the actual seat and like the whole
I know
standing up for stuff.
Well, I think the standing up for stuff we're gonna have to see because I feel like he kind of found his way the older he got. So we'll have to see like what drivers start to feel more and more comfortable. That's not to say that you need to be old to have a voice. Like obviously Lando speaks a lot about his mental health quite openly. So I think there's ways to do it, but we'll see who's willing to like get in trouble for it, I guess. Because remember, he wore a pride flag. I believe was it
last year, Hungary?
Yeah, this time last year at Hungary, and he got in trouble for that. So
we go into that later. Don't worry, fans.
We'll talk about it. But in terms of his seat, I was curious about that too after being sad for a little bit, and I saw some tweets today, from saying that the first pick for that seat is Mick Schumacher. What do you think?
Interesting, because they're not Ferrari family. Interesting. I don't know. I don't think I would believe that, but it might be they want him because they're seeing he has a lot of potential. But I the second thing Shannon has noted here is Nico Hulkenberg's on the list. And
Yeah.
that one I would definitely believe maybe a little bit more. We know he's already raced for them. He was above Latifi in the standings for quite some time this season,
Yeah.
having raced one race.
Oh dear God, let's not talk about Nicholas Latifi.
We'll get there when we talk about free practice and quality.
And also my awful grid rival team that's somehow holding on to the top 10 barely.
Do you have Latifi on your team?
We'll talk about it. Yeah, I think it honestly makes a little bit of sense to me because we know with whatever contract Red Bull created with Williams that they still have like the first dibs on Alex Albon.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe they'll set up something similarly for Aston Martin. But in terms of opportunity, when you look at the rest of the grid, for Mick to get in a better car than the Haas, like there isn't another chance right now. And won't be.
Is it better than the Haas this year?
Okay, that's another thing. Is it better? I'm not sure. However, they've got money.
Evidently.
They've got money.
What have they done with that money? They're dysfunctional
today. Yeah, I actually made a note of that before we need to talk about that. But it's, it's a good, I get it. You want to go to a team that has more financial stability so that he can actually be in hopefully a better car. That's not to say Aston Martin has a good car right now. We know it's not a good car. But I get it. And then for Nico, I also get that too. He showed what he can do. Like Caitlin so eloquently put, he was ahead of Nicholas Latifi in the standings and he only had one race. So I get it personally. But before we talk about the track, we're in Hungary, and qualifying, which was a little interesting. There's some surprises in qualifying, and of course the race, which was it honestly is becoming a little predictable. I'll say it. We'll have an ad break. So this episode of Get Checkered is brought to you by Alberta Blue Cross. Life as a business owner can be hectic, to say the least. Alberta Blue Cross understands that. They offer flexible health, dental, life, and disability coverage for your employees. Even better, you can let your staff enroll and manage their coverage at any time and on any device. That makes life easier for them and for you. You've got this when it comes to group coverage for your small business, and Alberta Blue Cross has your back. To learn more and explore your options, head to ab.bluecross.ca. That's it. All right. So tell me about the track, Caitlin.
Okay, yes. The one thing I am able to put in our notes is usually track. So we touched on Pride a little bit earlier based on Vancouver having Pride weekend this weekend. And we talked about Pride in Hungary, LGBTQ rights last year. Mostly it came to maybe ahead because we saw Seb. He got second in the race and he ends up getting disqualified. And that was because they couldn't take the liter fuel sample from his car. But Seb definitely insinuated, and I think we were also on board with like there's hidden intentions behind them, like wanting to disqualify him and like finding a reason to disqualify him, because Seb was very vocal for his advocacy of LGBTQ rights and the lack thereof in Hungary when they raced last year. I didn't see the same level of advocacy this year. I
was trying to think if the drivers did anything, but the only thing is Lewis, I believe, has kept the Pride logo on his helmet even after Pride. Because he's like, fuck it, I'm gonna race with it all year.
Technically, like June's Pride month, but Vancouver, whatever reasons, doing it.
And Calgary's different too. Calgary's is like September, so I don't know.
So yeah, interesting there. I wonder if like he got a talking to. I wonder if all the drivers were briefed like on what was allowed and wasn't. Who knows? But we're going to, on this episode of the podcast, go into kind of what's going on in Hungary, spread awareness. Because I didn't really see the drivers doing that for some with. So the notes you guys I got from Wiki, so give me a break. Wikipedia. Hungary is not exactly LGBTQ friendly. So they have restrictions on civil rights. There's no legal recognition of transgender Hungarians, and they've banned LGBTQ content and display for minors. Come January 2012, actually, a new constitution in Hungary came into effect that restricted marriage to Yeah, it restricted marriage to opposite sex couples, so meaning no same-sex marriage. Come 2020, there's the constitutional ban on adoption by LGBTQ peoples, singles or
Jesus.
couples. Yeah. Transgender people are not allowed to serve in the military. There is no conversion therapy allowed for minors, and there's no legal right to change gender. Lesbian couples are not allowed access to IVF. So single women are, but those in the same sex relationship are not. In June 2021, Hungary passed an anti-LGBTQ law banning, quote unquote, like any kind of propaganda to minors. And then in July 2021, the EU Commission actually commenced legal action against both Hungary and Poland for fundamental right violations of LGBTQ peoples. So that's definitely headed by governments, all these laws and the constitution put into place. But according to public surveys, I guess they were saying that like there's been an increase in general public support for LGBTQ rights. And it keeps going up year after year. But the last I saw was 2017. So truly, I don't think this reflects on all of Hungary. I really don't, but it's the fact that these laws are in place and it is fundamental human right violations that, yeah, it should be kind of talked about and changed.
Yeah, it's a big problem, folks. And I think that Caitlin and I, honestly, Caitlin, I think we're going to be talking about LGBT rights, Q rights a lot, because I don't know what's going on globally, folks. Like, we took a step forward and now it seems like we're taking a step backwards in a lot of countries in terms of protections, especially for trans folks. So pay attention, use your voice when you feel comfortable and feel safe, but it's important to discuss this stuff because it's not just happening in Hungary. It's stuff that's happening in the United States. Mm-hmm. It's stuff that we're seeing here in Canada, not thankfully, like not moving legislatively, but we're just seeing the loud minority being extra loud about things that it's gonna piss me off because anyways, I have something positive though. I was at a FC Cavalry, sorry, side tangent, but just wanted to show you that this is like, again, the public is in a different place. I was at the Cavalry game. So Calgary has a soccer team. Mm-hmm. And there were so many pride flags, like the progressive pride flag, the intersectional one, there was trans flag, all being waved around in the fan section that they have. So again, the stuff, inclusion can exist in sports, people. So it just drives me crazy. I just didn't realize that it was like this bad.
Yeah, I think like we didn't do the deep dive last year, but we knew that like the general Hungarian rules and laws were around this, but now that we actually know the details, it's very alarming.
It's not great.
So yeah, you guys use your voice if you're comfortable, and let's try and make the world a better place. Okay, continuing. So unpolitical track facts with some support from Wikipedia and racefans.net. So this race is held in a small town in Hungary. It's called Magyarod. I could be getting that. But it's close to Budapest. Shanika, I lost your voice again.
I think that sounded perfect.
Thank you. So this name, Magyarod, is pretty much derived from what is rich in hazelnuts in Hungarian, which is kind of fun.
Oh my God, really?
So okay. There's lots of history from Wikipedia. They were talking about like this big battle going back to like 1074. There was a big attack there on 1242, and I'm like, okay, I can't even imagine those years. Like Canada was founded centuries later. So yeah, no, just lots of history, like the whole Europe, but it's kind of cool. It's still a small town though, with that much history. Tourism is the main industry in this town, and that's mostly due to the F1 race. But so something that I thought was wild was, quote unquote, from Wikipedia, a national survey ranks, oh God, this Magyarod third amongst Hungarian destinations visited by tourists, behind the Dunabe Bend area and Lake Balaton, but ahead of Budapest. And I was like,
interesting.
did we do this? I did not know this. I did not know this place existed. Okay, cool. Geography, apparently not my strong suit, like I thought it was. It's fine. So the Hungarian is the circuit. It is 4.38 kilometers long, and they do 70 laps. The full throttle is about 50% of the time, so it's not as high as other circuits, which we kind of see. Like, there's a lot of slow turns that they're doing. The tires selected this year were mid-range slicks, so your C2, C3, C4. Track has really high downforce and has low asphalt abrasion. And we saw tires really come into play.
Yeah, they really mattered today.
Yeah. And then just some fun facts about the Hungarian GP itself. So in Hungarian, this race is known as the Magyar Nagydíj.
Honestly,
so I think that's what we were seeing on the screen, and I didn't know what it was, but I think that's what Hungarian GP is. The first Hungarian GP, okay, fun fact, held in 1936 in a town called Nepliget. Actually, it's not a town, it's a park in Budapest. But it held one race, and then for the next 50 years, there was no Hungarian GP.
Oh.
This was due to both politics and war. And then they relocate. Bernie Ecclestone ends up putting a deal in to hold a race behind the Iron Curtain. And so, yeah, the inaugural race at the Hungarian was held in 1986. First race, first F1 GP behind the Iron Curtain. Currently, it's in contract until 2027. So we have some more years. Fun fact is they did not have a race here, a wet race here until 2006, I guess. And I find it interesting because like last year's race was affected by rain. This year's race, it was definitely like in the air. Yeah. And so I'm like, oh, why? Touched on it earlier. Climate change. It shows up everywhere. So Lewis Hamilton has 8 wins here. The next closest is actually Michael Schumacher with 4 wins. McLaren has most wins at 11. They were pretty dominant from 2005 to 2012. They had some wins in the late 80s and 90s too. And then I do want to touch upon last year's Hungarian GP. Let's remember it. We did the TikTok video, Valtteri hitting up Lando from behind. I thought it was a great video. Because what was it? It was like, stop eating my sandwich. No. Something like that. It was one of those funny videos. Anyways, if you guys haven't seen it, go check it out on our TikTok. Yeah, there was the big pile up, lap 1, turn 1, right off the street. So at a time, everyone got hit. Yeah. And we had Esteban, Esti Bestie won. That was his first and only Grand Prix win last year, Hungarian GP.
Holy.
Yeah.
A lot of time. That was an insane race.
I know. Okay. So that's the end of track facts. We'll get into the actual racing here after a quick ad. So this episode is brought to you by Bloom. Want to get a handle on Edmonton's growing innovation scene? Take a listen to Bloom, Taproot's newest podcast. Each week, host Karen Unland and Faiza Ramji will discuss the latest developments in efforts to solve problems and diversity in the economy. Find out who has invented what, who's investing in whom, and what is on the horizon. Find Bloom wherever you listen to your podcast or visit bloom.taprootedmonton.ca.
I always forget that I know these people. Faiza's great. She actually also has a liquor company. So if anyone
that's fun.
wants more details, we can look her up. All of it's there.
That is fun.
Okay. Qualifying was, I didn't watch it. I feel like we say that every week. Okay. What's more surprising is the time that we ever watch it. So the most exciting thing for me though was our boy Georgie.
Georgia got his first ever pole in F1, and Toto looked like a very proud papa.
He was so happy because it was a I did watch the highlights and it looks like he got it kind of in the last second. It felt like he somehow laid down and just nailed it. And I was like, oh my God, this is
As well, because
amazing.
like Lewis was in 7th.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, whoop, George.
Yeah, so Lewis had DR, like his DRS wing wasn't opening, so he kind of had to bail on his last. Anyways, whatever. Let's just celebrate George. Huge, freaking first pole of his entire career in the Mercedes, which has been problematic for the first half of the season. Like it's,
Yep.
I don't know. I was just so happy for him. The Red Bulls though struggled. I don't know if you saw any of the highlights, Caitlin, but every time I don't know which one I was watching, but the one that I was watching, they had Max's radio come on and it was like censored. It was like beep, 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 not working, beep, fix this. And I was like,
Nice. Nice. Good work, Max.
Yeah. So Red Bull qualified in 10th and 11th.
Which is, I think that they were saying that was their worst qualifying team result in a long, long time.
In a long time, which I thought was a huge opportunity for Ferrari because they were speedy. Like Carlos and Charles were so fast.
They almost had the front row lockout, but did not because of George. But we had Sainz actually faster than Leclerc, which was like, oh, okay.
I know. It seems like he's finding his way in the Ferrari car. So I'm obviously very happy for Sainz. Love to see it. Lando was a bit of a surprise too in P4.
Yeah. Who would have guessed? Huh. In this year's McLaren? Huh.
Oh God, the McLaren. It was just anyways, so that was qualifying, but then after we kind of heard through the grapevine what was going on. So Pierre ended up having to swap components of his power unit or swap his power unit, but he was already like with that swap, he would have been over the allowed amount. So he actually had a grid penalty. So he had to start in the pit lane. And then Checo and Max actually got new components, but they hadn't gone over the limit. So they were fine, which I thought was interesting. I don't know. I mean, it worked.
It just happened at once.
Yeah, right. But again, Red Bull powertrain babies, because we know the AlphaTauri has one too. So not sure what's going on there.
One thing I want to touch about before we get to race day, because I've been seeing a lot of it over Instagram, is free practice 3, Shanika. Take a guess who was in first place.
Who is in? Oh, our Canadiana boy.
Nicholas Latifi was in P1 after FP3. And Alex Albon was in 3rd. I see like WTF1 was like, I'll put this in the Louvre.
That doesn't happen.
And of all people, Michael Italiano was there liking the Insta post, and I'm like, you guys.
Because it doesn't happen. And like it didn't happen. He like tumbled down.
I wonder what Latifi really thinks about, like, a lot of people are making the joke about, oh, Goat Tifi, like GOAT, greatest of all time, Efi.
Yeah.
But it's evidently something's bad with my computer. YOLO. I don't know why. But yeah, he obviously knows it's sarcastic and he's taking it in stride, but yeah, everyone's like, oh, go Tiffy, because you're never gonna see that again.
You're never gonna see that again. Yep. And he normally causes some sort of accident, which he didn't this race day.
No, but he did not do well.
No, he did not do well.
He was okay, and maybe, you know what, I won't talk about it in the race day section. I'll talk about it now. He was like very sassy over the intercom, and I'm like, is this a rich kid privilege voice coming out or something?
Yeah, he was upset. He was like, I can't, like, he was complaining about the car, but it's also like, is it a car issue or is it a you issue, my dear? Not certain. Anyways, Caitlin, race day. Who are your winners and losers and in-betweeners from the race?
So we'll start with top of the podium. So Max won.
Insane.
And that is a big win. I want to get your opinion. My opinion, after seeing this race, especially, like, Max had a spin he spun out in the middle of the track and he still wins this whole thing really without too much worry. And I'm like, okay, so unless Mercedes really pick it up, and there's a chance they do in the second half of the season, Ferrari has to get their shit together. I don't think that's going to happen. Like Max has pretty straightforward path to getting world champion this year again, and comfortably. Like he's not stressed, he's not yelling at people. He's chilling.
Yeah, so like Caitlin said, he went from P10 to P1 at a ring that at a track that's difficult to pass at. Like that's the big thing. It's like, oh, you can't pass here. It wasn't a problem for him. And right now, it's so funny because Charles was saying this in the interviews from earlier this week, where he was like, yeah, I was on Twitter and I know that if Max gets second in every single race going forward and Charles wins every single race going forward, Max will still win. Like Max will still win the world championship. And it just really sucks because today, like the team was so good with his tire strategy. Like they really understood what they needed to do. They did an undercut successfully. I don't know. They are the better team. Like that's just it. And Max is not, I don't know. He's having to fight for it, obviously, because we do see some racing. Like especially today, there's a lot of good battles that were happening between him and George and others. Like there was a lot of good stuff, but it's still like, you're right. He's very comfortable out there. Like, I don't know.
And it doesn't look like there's anyone that's gonna on his level. Like Lewis is on his level as a driver, but the car's not.
The car isn't
Charles's car is on the same level, but Charles isn't holding up to the pressure this year.
The team isn't. we'll talk about
Charles had his own, like he makes his own mistakes that like Max doesn't make.
Exactly. Should we talk about Ferrari being a loser or should we talk about Mercedes?
Yeah, okay. One winner, one loser. Let's go straight to Ferrari.
Holy shit. This is becoming a constant.
It is. It's bad. Like when
it's so bad, people. So the thing is, Carlos and Charles at the start, they had really good starts and they were holding on to George. We know that Mercedes is like, the joke is that it's a tractor, which it seems like they've improved a little bit, but like it should have been easy pickings for them. And it was not that at all. I think when they initially started, I was like, oh, they're on a different tire strategy. Like maybe they've got it. Like maybe they finally got strategy under their belt. And lo and behold, they didn't at all.
Yeah, it's always something to like when someone tries something different from the rest, it's like, ooh, okay, is this going to pay off? And the fact that Ferrari doing that so often and it's not paying off, it's like, okay, who's wanting to think outside the box and maybe just don't for a race or something.
Yeah, right. Like literally do what everyone else is doing for the love of God.
You have the better car, so it's fine.
Exactly. It like in the cool down room with George, Lewis, and Max, and they were watching the playback, and George even said this in a post-race interview. None of them understand why Ferrari put Charles on a hard because the conditions were not good for a hard, and there were other drivers on hards, and they were having like an impossible time getting the tires to work.
So it's like, so the drivers who don't get the full picture, and even they can recognize that, be like, why are you doing that to your lead driver? Like, it does raise a lot of questions.
It does. It was
and okay, so it wasn't just George, Max, and Lewis. I want to also comment that there was a Twitter put out by Romain Grosjean being like a Ferrari strategy, and then the mind blowing emoji 4 times. And I was like, literally, Ferrari, how are you not seeing this and being like, everyone does not think we're doing things right? What are we doing?
Yeah, it is a freaking mess. And in the post-race interview, Mattia said that he was like, well, the car wasn't working the way that they wanted, which I thought was so confusing because I'm like, I think the car was working fine, dude. I think that you just picked the wrong tires the entire time. Like I truly think that. I don't think that there was an issue with the car. The car seemed fine. So I don't know what the hell he's saying, but anyways, I wouldn't be surprised if he's fired by the end of the season if they aren't able to.
Was it him problem or like he's protecting his strategist?
Strategist.
They might strategist. That's the word. They need to reevaluate in that department, I think, specifically.
I would like to say, Caitlin and I, when we watched Drive to Survive the first time and started this podcast, we said people at Ferrari need to get fired. We did.
And here we
are. 2 years later, people at Ferrari need to get fired. There needs to be a shakeup. It is ridiculous for them to, like, Charles has made mistakes. It's his first championship run. I think that is going to happen. We kind of saw that with Max too. But the thing is, the team then has to act like the rock that can put the driver back on the straight, narrow right path, support them, whatever needs to be done. And they can't even support him.
Yeah, when Charles is ready to have a good race, they're not there for him to have a good race.
No, absolutely not. And it is just painful to watch. I feel like we're watching like the sinking of the Titanic. And like, you know, obviously, Caitlin and I, we are armchair experts. We like think we know everything, but at the same time, it's kind of like if you see everyone else doing something, maybe just do that. Like, I don't know, it doesn't seem that difficult. I'm so sad for Charles, and it reminds me of like I understand now this frustration that Sebastian Vettel felt when he was on his way out of Ferrari, where he was like, they're not supporting me. And I was like, I get that. Because could you imagine if you're Charles and this constantly happens? At some point, you're just going to get frustrated.
Yeah. And I know he must be already. So I'm like, what's your move, Charles? What are you
going to do? What are you going to do? We did have another winner, though, which was Mercedes.
They had a phenomenal race.
They had such a good race.
Yeah, no, it was like Shanika's got some good notes in here. She's like, George fought his ass off, and he really did. He led the Grand Prix for like 30 laps. Charles was like hot on his tail. There was some good racing. Didn't get a W, but he showed that he's good in that car. And like, if the car can be turned up probably a notch or two, it's like he's going to do very well. And I put my side opinion here that George is proving he was the correct choice for Mercedes over Valtteri at this point.
Yeah.
Like, he's doing well in that car. I don't think Valtteri truly would be doing that. This is Hot Takes podcast. Okay.
I agree. I think it's like George is just doing so well, and his racecraft was like insane. Some of the stuff that he was doing and the lines that he was getting to hold off Charles for as long as he did, I was like, this is so impressive. And that win is not too far away from him. I guarantee it. Like, it's coming for sure. So he finished in P3, which is great. I think his teammate Lewis was like a bit of a surprise for me. The dude was freaking flying.
I know. Okay, and after free practice, because like he was complaining about the car, and I'm like, oh, okay. So if this is the case, I'm not putting you on the grid rival team. Don't fake us out, Lewis.
Towards the end, him and Carlos were both put on softs to get to the end of the race, just to like work through the grid and try and get a podium. And I don't know what it was, but Lewis turned it on in the Mercedes and was so fast, like banging out fastest laps over and over and over again. And to be frank, if there was more laps in the race, he could have been a contender for that win.
He was catching Max, yeah.
Yeah. Like, he was faster than Max for the tail end of the race. So again, tires, of course, we know, like, you can't call them a softs forever, whatever, but still, he was really fucking fast. They had great strategy with him. I think him and George, when they were, 2 and 3 before they swapped, and they didn't swap, they definitely, like, there wasn't team orders.
Yep.
They raced, but they raced
I
fairly.
thought was a fair thing. Like
Yeah.
we knew Lewis was much faster and he could pass, so I don't think team orders were needed at that point.
No. And like they did what they needed to do to get a 2-3, a double podium, a double points finish for Mercedes. Right now in the constructors, they're only 30 points behind Ferrari. Can we just talk about
and Red Bull's far ahead. Like Ferrari's game is lost.
I just don't understand how Ferrari comes, the first race of the season. We're all thinking Ferrari's back because they got the 1-2. They have this amazingly fast car. Mercedes is like barely keeping it together. And I heard one of the commentators say today, she's like, I think it was a woman. I want to say it was a woman. That Mercedes had the right strategy, which was like when they knew their car sucked, they didn't think about what anybody else is doing. They just focused on their team, focused on fixing the vehicle and the car and getting it to where it is now, which has taken a lot of work from the drivers to the strategists to the engineers across the board. And Matteo said something similar in his interview. He's like, we just need to focus on our own team, which I'm like, you should have been doing that way earlier on the season, dude, because right now you're 30 points, only 30 points ahead of Mercedes. And we know that where you finish in the constructors is important because that means that you get certain amounts of money from the FIA and Formula One. So it's insane to me that we're now at the halfway point of the season. We're hitting into summer break, and Mercedes that had a tractor that like all you would see is Lewis Hamilton and George Russell just bouncing like mad is so close to Ferrari. It's insane.
It's good though. I do think they'll make strides going forward for the second half of the season. I think they'll be in contention for race wins.
I think so. I think so too. I think, like I said, the George win's coming, that Lewis win is coming too. Just gotta wait and see. I added 2 losers, but for like very similar reasons. And I know this is maybe unpopular because they finished in the points, they did well. Alpine, they were on a one-stop strategy, so they were kind of all over the place. But the reason why I put them down as losers is because they are not the infighting when they're racing is not good.
It's gonna create a problem if it continues.
Yeah. It was ugly, this race, where I was like, why are you risking potentially damaging both of your cars because one of you just isn't willing to give way? And I totally understand you want to beat your teammate. That's like the joy of Formula One, but not when there's all these other people you need to race to. Like
I have my sorry.
That's okay.
My hypothesis is that Bestie wanted a win. He wanted to show that like this is still my track. I won last year. Let me just be the best. That's my hypothesis.
Yeah. And no.
And Alonso's a Leo, so he's not gonna just like let him go.
It's true. He is a Leo, and that's another problem because he cares about how he looks. He wants to be flashy, but when they're coming so close to colliding, it's like, ugh.
I know
at some point the team has to step in.
About that, yeah.
And I also put down Aston Martin too as like a loser because there was an accident with Danny Rick. I think we're going to talk about Danny Rick in another way too.
That was a good Stroll, right?
Yeah, him and Stroll, but honestly, it was McLaren's fault. They put him on Danny Rick on the hards. He had no traction, so he like slid into Lance Stroll. There was nothing he could do, and Danny ended up with a 5-second penalty afterwards too. So everything was handled. But again, the infighting, we saw this. Was it the last race, Caitlin, where they almost had contact, or they did have contact?
I can't remember, probably though. This one was. Yeah. I totally agree with this point from this race because like I don't know about your stream, but like F1 TV it was George and Lewis actually on one side of the screen because they were gonna do the swap soon, and then it was Aston Martin on the other half, and they're like, look at these guys.
They were not giving it up. I was like, oh my god.
And so okay, I have questions for you for this point. Okay, does the atmosphere at Aston Martin you think also contribute to Seb's retirement and announcement at this point?
That's a good question.
Because we know it's a kind of toxic, especially with Lawrence Stroll
With Lord Stroll.
leading things.
Yeah, that's a good point. Okay, I will say this. I think if Aston Martin had a stronger car this year, I think that Sebastian Vettel would not be retiring because he wants to compete for wins, right? He is still a competitive person, all that kind of stuff. I don't know if that's tied to the environment, but I do think if you have this vision, right? Like Aston Martin, it's this whole goal, all this money is being pumped into it. They're sniping people from other teams, and it's not working out. My assumption would be that there'd be a lot of frustration internally. So that could be rubbing off on the drivers. But I think in general, he probably thought he'd be in a better car and not competing against his teammate for 1 point.
Yes. So my next question is about exactly that. So now we know Seb's retiring and it's out in the public. Is that why he's like a bit more forceful and visibly fighting Stroll as a teammate? Do you think like there's probably been emotions before between the two of them, but we haven't seen Seb be this aggressive with Stroll yet?
No. I think some of it is like, okay, you know you're retiring. You got to give it your all now. Like, what else do you have to lose? Nothing. Lance Stroll's going to have that seat until the end of time.
I know. And like Seb, you don't need to try and keep that seat. You're retired. No. So it's like, I'll just let me through.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I'd be curious to pull back the curtain a little bit more at Aston Martin. If anyone knows, if anyone works there and wants to come on the podcast anonymously and tell us what's going on,
anonymously,
let us know because we definitely want to know.
We like tea. We like it hot.
Yeah, we like the gossip. I also added a loser, which was my grid rival team. As you all know, we talk about our fantasy league literally every single week because it is right now it's my team is I'm somehow just like bleeding money, somehow still in 10th place.
You're in 10th. Okay, how much money did you lose?
Only 600,000.
Okay, that's not bad, Shanika. That's not bad at all. I lost 4 million.
Oh my god, who was on your team?
I had Prez, Bottas, Schumacher, Vettel. I had to put Vettel and I starred him for this one. So he got me some good points. Albon, and I had Red Bull. Red Bull ended up losing money this time.
That makes sense. Because the qualifying counts, right? Yeah.
So anyways, I lost a lot of money, but I went up a spot. I'm in 21st now.
So I have K-Mag and I double starred him, which he did not have a great race. He qualified in 13th and finished in 16th, so that was not amazing. I did have Lewis on my team though, so that helped a little. I also had Lando on the team, but then I had Yuki, who, did you see his own little spin? Like he just like spun himself anyways. So he went from P16 to P19. And because I have no fucking money, I had Nicholas Latifi, who went from P20 to P18, which is still an improvement, but still lost money on him. And my constructor is Ferrari, so somehow that went up.
How did Red Bull go down and Ferrari went up?
I don't know.
How?
We gotta email Ross.
Give me some money, please. Wild.
Yeah, so my team I'm stuck with this team for a while too, so it's
Annie.
Let's just hope that Nicholas Latifi just doesn't bin it, like that's it. If he can just not screw up, then that would be nice.
Yes. Okay. Also, so Shanika has here noted, not necessarily win. I would put it in like because him himself in this race, not a winner, but maybe this move we could put as a winner.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. Danny did a double overtake on the Alpines.
It was beautiful. It was so
It was-
beautiful. And it was because the Alpines were fighting each other.
Yeah. He took advantage of it. It looked very good. Didn't think he was going to be able to pull it off, but here we go. Danny had a very good move. Now I'm going to counter that with, I know we had Danny fans on the pod. So just to humble everyone, Danny Rick is now 12th in the driver standings. My friends, that is behind Kevin Magnussen in a Haas.
Fuck. Yeah, the double overtake was so brilliant. I was like, oh, this looks so good. And even he was like, let's fucking go, or something like that. Like I was just like, this is so beautiful. It looks so good. You don't see moves like that very often. And then they put him on the hard. And I was like, ugh. And then the accident happened. And you're like, oh my God, this guy can't get a freaking break.
And it's like we're talking about common trends. We often see it with Ferrari being like, oh, you just screwed up strategy. With Danny Rick, it's a trend on his Instagram and on Michael Italiano's Instagram of, well, this wasn't our weekend.
Yeah. And it's like,
at a point, you're not going to say it's not our weekend. It's a weekend.
Yeah.
Same weekend we've been having.
Over and over. And again, with McLaren and the hards, it's like with Alpine being on the one stop, they went into hards. Like you would have gotten all that information pretty early. So it's like, why would you? Anyways, again, a weird strategy call. When Danny, like, especially when he gets that confidence, right? Of like, oh, you did a cool move. He feels confident in the car. This could be like a really good points finish. And then you put him on hards, he slides into another car. It's just game over for him at that point. Like,
yikes. Yeah.
It's not great.
No,
not great.
People were suspecting if he would go to Aston Martin for Seb's place, but like we discussed, mostly due to his performance, we've been discussing his future with McLaren, and he is very adamant that he's there until end of 2023. So I don't think he's a replacement for Seb.
Right? Yeah, I don't think he is either. I think we're beyond that conversation. I feel like it's going to be someone else. But that's all, folks, about the Hungarian Grand Prix. It's now the summer break, so you should definitely look at all of their Instagram stories because all the boys will be on yachts, probably in Ibiza.
Yes.
But Caitlin and I will still be recording episodes. We have some fun ones. I'm going to like produce some fun ones.
Okay, and I am going to do a sustainable one. I've been talking about it for weeks, and I will. I'll put it in the notes sometime.
Yes. So we'll have fun ones and then a sustainable episode, maybe an interview if I can swing it. But yeah, that's it. When we're back, though, is it Belgium? Is that where we're at?
First.
I don't remember.
And really, the bar's on the ground from Spa 2021. It should hopefully get better than Spa 2021. That was sad.
That was sad. Yeah. I think it is Belgium. So we'll see who ends up coming out top there. I don't know who it will be.
It'll be fun though.
Yes, it is the Belgian GP. Oh, such an early start.
Huh? What time?
It says 6 a.m.
For you? Oh,
Caitlin, we can just watch it later. We can record it later.
I know. But now I have, yeah. Apparently, I always just wake up late, and that's fine. I know this about myself.
It's fine. It's fine. You're living the college years that we didn't have because we stayed at home. You're living now. So
I mean, we had our college years. We did.
We did.
I'm just a different version of them now.
Yeah, one where we have more money. So
yeah, it makes a difference.
It definitely makes a difference. Okay, friends. Well, if you haven't yet, you should rate and review this podcast. It helps people find us. Also makes our advertisers happy, which makes us happy because then we get to pay folks for being on the podcast and things like that. You can also follow us at Get Checkered on TikTok, Twitter, Instagram. I think that's it. And you can always, right?
YouTube.
Right. We're on YouTube, so you can actually watch us. Get Checkered on YouTube. Yeah, you can watch us. You can see our faces. Is that it? I can't think of it. Okay.
Well, yeah, friends, until we talk to you next time, stay checkered. Enjoy the watching everyone's Insta stories to see what they're up to for the summer break. And yeah, we'll talk to you again soon.
Okay, bye everyone.
Bye.